China just canceled every Boeing order, $38 billion gone overnight. But that wasn't the real attack. Just hours later, Beijing cut off the minerals that power US missiles, satellites, and smartphones. This wasn't retaliation. It was a blueprint for how to collapse an economy without firing a single shot. China didn't issue a press release. They didn't make a speech. They just stopped buying. A surgical move aimed at America's aerospace heart. And here's what's even more unsettling. This wasn't a business decision. It was a signal, a shot across the Pacific. Because Boeing wasn't just a contractor, it was a symbol of US dominance, of American engineering, of post-Cold War globalization. Now, it's a liability. One that Beijing has strategically rejected, and not for the first time. So why now? Why Boeing? And why the silence? Stick around, because the next move is even more dangerous. The decision to cancel all outstanding Boeing orders came from months of rising friction over Taiwan arms sales and US semiconductor sanctions. But here's the catch. Instead of escalating publicly, Beijing framed the move as commercial optimization. Aviation analysts like Richard Abalafia immediately pointed to politics. This wasn't market dynamics. This was retaliation, calibrated down to the rivet, he told the Wall Street Journal. And the signal? China is willing to cut billion-dollar contracts not just to punish, but to pivot. But what comes after punishment? A replacement strategy and a warning to the West. China once accounted for 25% of Boeing's commercial jet revenue. In 2017 alone, Boeing delivered 202 aircraft to Chinese carriers, compared to just 46 in 2024, per company filings. And now, 0 future orders. According to Bloomberg Intelligence, Boeing's projected revenue loss from the Chinese bloc could exceed $8.2 billion annually if the freeze persists. That's not just a slowdown, it's a structural collapse of the company's long-haul forecast. What's more, Airbus is gaining altitude. China signed an expanded Airbus A320neo deal worth $17 billion in early 2025. It's not just that Boeing lost China, said aerospace strategist Kevin Michaels. It's that Airbus took it and is building jets inside China's borders. Boeing's hopes for recovery now hinge on US defense contracts, but even those are facing rare earth headwinds. And that's where the next cut begins, deep in America's industrial gut. Beijing didn't wait. In April, China's Ministry of Commerce expanded export controls on rare earths, specifically gallium, germanium, neodymium, and dysprosium, targeting end-use risk to national security. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, China supplies over 83% of global refined rare earth output. The U.S., less than 9%, with almost all processing outsourced back to China. This isn't trade policy, it's precision warfare, said Jane Nakano, energy and materials specialist at CSIS. The timing wasn't random, it coincided with U.S. restrictions on Chinese AI chips and quantum computing exports. Now, American manufacturers across aerospace, electronics, and automotive sectors are bracing for what Bloomberg Economics estimates could be $12.4 billion in annual supply chain disruption if restrictions persist through Q3. And yet, this isn't about the minerals. It's about how few backdoors are left open. The myth of redundancy collapsed overnight. Despite years of reshoring rhetoric, 92% of high-grade permanent magnets used in U.S. defense and clean tech still come from China, according to the 2024 Congressional Research Service report. These aren't optional components. They're foundational. From missile actuators to wind turbine motors, missing one of these rare earth stalls entire assembly lines. Case in point, Raytheon had to delay production of its SPY-6 radar systems after a subcontractor failed to source terbium on time. Terbium that used to flow from Inner Mongolia. We underestimated how surgical China could be, admitted a senior U.S. Commerce Department official in a leaked internal memo obtained by Reuters. This wasn't a blanket embargo, it was a scalpel. And now the blade is heading toward defense, tech, and robotics, where even short delays have trillion-dollar costs. Let's start with defense. The Pentagon confirmed in April 2025 that 37 critical weapon systems, including the F-35, AIM-9X Sidewinder, and PAC-3 missile interceptors rely on rare earth materials still sourced or processed in China. Lockheed Martin, for instance, admitted that 86% of its neodymium magnets for guidance systems have no domestic alternative ready before 2027. On the tech front, Tesla's Shanghai plant, while operational, is facing part shortages that are delaying U.S. imports by 3 to 5 weeks, according to internal documents leaked to Caixin. Nvidia, meanwhile, saw a 12% drop in Q1 chip output due to upstream constraints in raw, yttrium, and europium. And then there's AI robotics. Boston Dynamics supply chain lead told MIT Tech Review they are at risk of halting advanced actuator production within 90 days, unless alternative rare earth sources are secured, an echo of what's happening across Silicon Valley. But the real danger isn't today's shortage, it's tomorrow's geopolitical math. Because the US isn't just playing catch-up, it's playing catch-up without a map. In his March 2025 trade speech, President Trump doubled down on reshoring, pledging $72 billion in manufacturing subsidies over 5 years. But as the White House funnels funds into factories, one glaring problem remains. Nearly all those facilities still rely on inputs processed in China. According to a February 2025 report from Bloomberg and WSJ, 78% of critical magnet-grade rare earths used in American electric vehicles, drones, and defense systems are still refined in China or by Chinese joint ventures. Even Lynas Rare Earths, often hailed as a US-friendly alternative, ships its raw material from Australia to Malaysia, then back to China for purification. It's like building your own kitchen but relying on your rival to deliver water, said Paul Triolo, head of China tech policy at Albright Stonebridge Group. Reshoring is the headline, but the footnote is dependency, and Beijing knows exactly where the pressure valves are. The question now isn't whether the US can build, it's whether it can operate without Beijing flipping the switch. Beijing didn't just drop Boeing, it swapped suppliers and accelerated its internal timeline. In January 2025, China finalized an expanded Airbus deal worth $17.3 billion, including 160 A320neo aircraft and priority production slots at its Tianjin facility. According to Le Figaro, over 30% of the final assembly will now occur on Chinese soil, securing jobs and tech transfer simultaneously. But while Airbus gains short-term lift, China's long-term play is clear Comac. The domestically developed C919, which entered commercial service in late 2023, has racked up over 1,200 orders, primarily from state-backed carriers and regional partners. Aviation Week reported in February 2025 that the C919's production target was raised to 150 aircraft annually by 2026, tripling initial estimates. It's a deliberate decoupling, said Bank of China aviation analyst Liu Jin. China doesn't just want to replace Boeing, it wants to erase the need for Boeing. And buried inside those Airbus contracts, a new clause hinting at Beijing's bigger strategy, one that bypasses the dollar altogether. In a quiet but consequential footnote to the Airbus deal, China and France signed a bilateral currency swap agreement expanding the use of the yuan in aircraft settlements, a move first reported by Les Echos. This isn't symbolic. According to SWIFT data released in April 2025, the Chinese yuan surpassed the euro to become the second most used currency in global trade finance, trailing only the dollar. And the shift isn't isolated to France. Germany's BASF, which operates a 10 billion euro chemicals hub in Guangdong, announced in February it will settle 40% of future trade with China in yuan. The realignment isn't loud, it's incremental, institutional, and quietly irreversible, said Zoltan Pazar, former Credit Suisse strategist, in a recent note to clients. With BRICS Plus nations pushing for an alternative to SWIFT and the IMF still debating SDR reforms, Beijing's message is blunt. Work with us, get cheaper access, and escape Washington's financial reach. And this monetary drift? It might do more than undermine the dollar, it could fracture the global trade order the US built. The Department of Energy estimates the U.S. needs to scale critical mineral production by 400% by 2030 just to meet projected EV and defense demand. Yet as of Q1 2025, only 2 commercial-scale rare earth mines operate on U.S. soil, MP Materials in California and Ucore in Alaska, and neither can currently process heavy rare earths domestically. According to a March 2025 report by S&P Global, permitting delays, environmental opposition, and lack of refining infrastructure mean the average timeline from discovery to production still exceeds 8.2 years. Meanwhile, China's Beotu region alone produced over 120,000 metric tons of rare earth oxides in 2024, nearly 6 times total U.S. output. Recycling offers some hope. Redwood Materials and Novion are ramping up lithium and magnet recovery in Nevada and Ohio. But even under optimistic projections, domestic supply won't cover more than 24% of projected demand by 2027. So let's be clear, America's industrial machine isn't just exposed. It's running full speed toward a materials wall. But if you think this is the end game, think again. This wasn't a retaliation, it was a blueprint. China didn't just cancel Boeing or block rare earths. They tested how fast the US stumbles without them. And what they learned? Every sector, from AI to aviation, hinges on a fragile web of foreign minerals, outsourced refinement, and financial dominance that no longer guarantees compliance. But here's the unnerving part. This may only be the rehearsal. So what happens if Beijing takes it further? What if next comes a full tech embargo? Or a coordinated digital yuan settlement system that drains the dollar's relevance from the inside out? If Boeing was the warning shot, and rare earths were the opening move, what's the checkmate? Because China's not just rewriting the rules, they're building their own game board, and the US might already be 3 moves behind. We're glad you're enjoying this video. Please like and subscribe. Check out another video that is now on your screen.